In the sun-drenched heart of Crete, beneath the golden palace of King Minos, a wound was carved into the earth. An impossible maze of twisting, lightless corridors designed not to hide a treasure, but to bury a terrible, breathing secret. This was the labyrinth, and at its center lived not a beast of simple malice, but a tragedy of royal sin made flesh, the Minotaur. For centuries, we have known him only as a monster, a savage bullman who devoured the innocent in the dark. But what if he wasn't the villain of his own story? What if he was the first victim, a prisoner mourning a life he never had? Today, we don't just investigate a monster. We peel back the layers of a cursed royal family, a story of divine revenge, a king's pride, and a queen's forbidden lust, to uncover the sick, twisted, and profoundly tragic truth of the Minotaur's birth. The chain of events that led to this tragedy begins with a king's hubris. King Minos of Crete, seeking to cement his rule, prayed to the mighty god of the sea, Poseidon. He asked for a sign of divine favor, a magnificent white bull to emerge from the waves, which he swore he would then sacrifice back to the god in honor. Poseidon, pleased, granted his wish. A bull of breathtaking beauty, white as sea foam, emerged from the ocean, a clear mark of divine right. But Minos, a man captivated by perfection, was overcome by greed. In an act of profound betrayal against a primordial god, he broke his sacred oath. He hid the divine bull among his own herds and sacrificed a lesser, ordinary bull in its place. He arrogantly believed a god as mighty as Poseidon would not notice or care about such a small deception. He was catastrophically wrong. The sea god was not just angered, he was insulted. The price for the king's arrogance would be a punishment of exquisite cruelty, aimed not at him, but at the heart of his family. Poseidon's revenge was a masterpiece of psychological horror. Instead of striking Minos down, he aimed his wrath at the king's innocent wife, Queen Pasiphaë. The god cursed her with a divine madness, an unnatural and uncontrollable lust for the very white bull her husband had failed to sacrifice. The queen was driven insane by this forbidden desire, her every waking thought consumed by the magnificent beast. Desperate to find relief from this divine torment, she confided in the most brilliant inventor in all of Greece, the artisan Daedalus. She begged him, in her madness, to devise a way for her to consummate her cursed passion. Daedalus, perhaps under duress, or simply fascinated by the impossible challenge, agreed. He constructed a lifelike, hollow wooden cow, covered it with real cowhide, and wheeled it into the meadow where the divine bull grazed. The queen then hid herself inside the contraption, and the bull was deceived. This act of divine vengeance and human ingenuity would lead to a birth that would haunt the house of Minos for generations. The result of this unholy union was a creature of tragedy, a being with the powerful body of a man, but the head and tail of a bull. He was given a princely name, Asterion, meaning the Starry One, a name filled with a hope that could never be realized. As he grew, his savage, bovine nature took over, and he developed a terrifying hunger for human flesh. King Minos, horrified by the living symbol of his wife's infidelity and his own sin, could not bring himself to kill the boy. Instead, he chose to hide his shame. He once again commissioned the inventor Daedalus, this time to build not a tool of lust, but an inescapable prison. Daedalus designed the labyrinth, a massive, impossibly complex maze from which no one could ever escape. The Minotaur was then cast into the dark heart of this prison, left to live in solitude. He was a prisoner from birth, a monster created by the sins of others, condemned to darkness for a crime he did not commit. His only company, the ghosts of the victims his hunger drove him to create. The final chapter of this tragedy is well known, demanding a tribute of Athenian youths to be sacrificed to the beast. It was the hero Theseus who finally entered the maze and slew the Minotaur. But the evidence of our investigation is clear. The story of the Minotaur is one of cascading tragedy, where every character is a victim of a god's cruelty and a king's pride. But the greatest victim of all is the Minotaur himself. He never chose his monstrous form. He never chose his hunger. He never chose his prison. His entire existence was one of solitary confinement and confusion, a punishment for a crime he didn't commit. His death was not the slaying of a villain. It was the tragic but necessary euthanizing of a tortured soul who should never have been born in the first place. The real monsters were not in the labyrinth. They were on the throne of Crete and on the peaks of Mount Olympus. So, who do you think was the true monster of this story? Let us know your verdict.